Hi there, everyone, and welcome to Big Business This Week. I'm Dave Briggs on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. Elon Musk's many roles already included running Tesla, SpaceX, Twitter, X, Neuralink, and the Boring Company for good measure. Now the world's richest man has added another title. Donald Trump's top donor to the tune of $75 million. Are Elon's companies more autonomous than his cars? And who's driving the Trump ground game? Wall Street Journal reporter Emily Glazer with us now. Emily, thanks so much for being here. And we will circle back to that massive donation in a minute. But first, I want to go back to where this started. Just 90 days ago when Elon endorsed Trump. As you know, he'd always been, at best, lukewarm on Trump. From what you can gather, what changed?
Well, a lot changed after the assassination attempt of Donald Trump. So what we had reported back in May is that Elon Musk and Donald Trump had been getting closer. Their ties were closer. Elon Musk had attended a gathering with a bunch of large donors in Palm Beach in March. Then Elon was co-hosting an anti-Biden dinner in Los Angeles in April, but he was never really fully saying that he was endorsing Trump. It was much more anti-Biden. Then the assassination attempt happened, and he decided to be more public about his support of Donald Trump. But make no mistake, for many months, there were these quiet rumblings, and we had reported on some that he could be a special advisor to Donald Trump. They were getting closer. So I would say what changed was his public endorsement, but he had already been planning behind the scenes to align himself with Donald Trump for this election.
One of the more fascinating relationships on the planet. Elon speaks and tweets in, frankly, apocalyptic terms about the consequences of electing Kamala Harris. But in terms of policy, what, if anything, is conservative about Elon Musk? What could he stand to gain from a second Trump administration?
There are a number of things that Elon Musk could gain. You mentioned the 6 businesses that he has. And so he is all about deregulation. Elon Musk actually hosted Donald Trump on X, his social media platform, formerly known as Twitter. And during that conversation, they talked about this kind of government commission that would look at all these different agencies. And Elon offered, I would be happy to co-lead that or lead it. Then a few days later, Donald Trump said if he's elected, then Elon would lead that. And that is all about deregulation, which could help Elon Musk in his various businesses. SpaceX is heavily regulated. It's one of the top government contractors on the defense side. And there are a number of different regulators that oversee different aspects of that. There's also Tesla. Obviously, electric vehicle policy is going to be huge going forward. Donald Trump has aligned himself a lot with oil and coal companies. So this could be a way for Elon to kind of navigate his way into that terrain and make it useful for Tesla. AI regulation. There is not very much in the United States right now. We've got an executive order under the Biden administration, but that's a huge area where a number of people from Silicon Valley and beyond are wondering what will happen with AI regulation. So as you can see, it's all these different areas, and Elon Musk is all about not having as much regulation, which could save his businesses many, many, many millions and millions of dollars, perhaps even more.
Of course, Democrats are far more supportive of electric vehicles. Donald Trump once said he wanted to kill them entirely in this country, but bygones. So Elon's holding a series of talks across Pennsylvania. Provided you can prove you voted in this election, you can sign a petition supporting free speech and the right to bear arms. Might this move the needle at all in, frankly, the most important state in this election?
Well, they're offering $47, and that's, probably because Trump wants to be elected the 47th president. So there's that tie in there. And while it's not saying that they would pay for someone to vote, it's paying to sign this petition, and then they get admission to these talks that you mentioned that Elon Musk is hosting. Now, that connection is something that could be problematic. First, the PAC, the America PAC, which we've reported on that Elon is a major donor of for the 3 months ending September 30th, his contributions, according to the Federal Election Commission's filings that came out earlier this week, were $75 million. And we expect it to be even more than that leading up through the election. The issue is that connection to then offering something for value with Elon Musk's talks, because I've seen some folks compare it to Taylor Swift having a concert and saying you can go for free, but you have to pay to sign this thing in order to go. And so it's that value exchange, and that's where it could get into really tough terrain with potentially breaking some of the rules about not paying anybody or offering something of value to vote.
Yeah, that's an interesting space to watch. Now, Elon is essentially, with that pack, the Trump ground game at this point. Are there any concerns among Republicans and Team Trump?
Make no mistake, this is a very tight election. The polls are saying that, but even if you go beyond the polls, that is what we are constantly hearing from our sources, both on the left and on the right. Now, the pact that Elon is tied to is essentially the vehicle for the RNC to get this ground game going. There are 7 key swing states, and what we have heard over and over again is that it is all going to come down to undecided voters in those swing states and whether they will actually get out and vote. And it's really hard to predict that. Elon Musk and that PAC, the America First PAC, have been really trying to be creative about different ways to get out the vote and to convince voters to vote. But they've also had problems. Elon has fired a number of different vendors from that PAC, and he even tweeted and acknowledged recently that they were trying to fix some of their problems, whether it was, certain elements of getting out the vote and having there be mistakes. There were issues very early on where people were trying to sign up to get registered to vote, and it wasn't really going through. And so there have been some missteps for sure. And in the typical Elon fashion, he's fired people when he didn't think they were doing what he wanted them to do. That's something that he does in corporate America, and he's extended that over to his political efforts as well.
I don't know if there are numbers, Emily, or something in your gut. Is Elon Musk a persuadable figure? Are there people that are going to be moved by what he's saying or tweeting?
I don't have a magic ball, Dave, so I hesitate to answer that, but I will say this. Elon Musk has roughly 200 million followers on X. So we don't know how many of those people are, U.S. citizens, real people, whether they are registered to vote, whether they can vote, but it's still a huge number. It's just like asking the question of, is Taylor Swift going to move the needle now that she endorsed Kamala Harris? You don't know for sure, but you do know they have massive followings, and you can't discount that. And so I feel like it's one of those things where time will tell, and it certainly does not hurt Donald Trump that he's got Elon Musk, who has a massive, rabid following of people, and we will see what happens. When Elon is donning a Black Make America Great Again hat and jumping up on the stage in Butler, Pennsylvania, you've got to imagine that's going to do something. It's unclear exactly what it will do, though.
Yeah, my assumption is most Elon bros were already in the Trump camp, but this might be akin to the Taylor Swift subject. Her supporters were largely already in the Kamala Harris camp. Will she come out and kind of counter that Elon message in the final concerts on the Eras Tour? I can't help but wonder. Let's talk quickly about SpaceX suing a California commission alleging political bias after it blocked them from increasing the number of rockets launched in the state. And problematic for California is the commissioner, Gretchen Newsom, who said Elon's hopping about the country, spewing and tweeting political falsehoods, attacking FEMA while claiming his desire to help hurricane victims. Might Elon have a case here?
So it is not brand new that Elon Musk and SpaceX, or one of his companies, is kind of attacking or going after regulations. Elon has a kind of intense past with the state of California. He has moved the headquarters of his companies out of California, and he has been very public that he feels there's too much regulation there. And, they have armies of lawyers and tons of people that have just been fighting the regulations there. That's why they moved SpaceX headquarters to Texas. That's why they're moving other company headquarters to Texas. And Elon has been super vocal about even on social issues and trans bills and what's going on around all of those efforts in California. So you've got to believe they're going to put all their money and power and resources into fighting this. And a lot of it will come down also to who's in power in California, how strong those state regulations are, and frankly, who gets elected president. I keep hearing from tons of companies that they don't know what will happen with certain regulations or regulators in states because so much will filter through about who's running the House, who's running the Senate, who's in power. And so we're going to have to wait and see on that one.
Yeah, and covering Elon is sipping from a news fire hose. You had SpaceX catch a rocket with some mechanical arms. Also, it was just over a week ago that he teased the robo-taxi or the cyber cab for what seems like the 10th time in the last 10 years. But to that point, are Elon's businesses being impacted, or are they on a collision course with his political stance?
I think that Elon's businesses are each very different. Most of Elon's companies are private except for Tesla. So the way that they are measured is a little bit tricky. I would say that in terms of his political views, when I speak with sources who are employees at his companies, they say that's kind of Elon being Elon. And a number of them aren't as worried about that. They're trying to kind of get their work done because Elon is known for not wanting to, to kind of keep the ball rolling, not miss production schedules, kind of keep innovating. And so um, we will have to see. I think if Donald Trump wins, Elon Musk and his businesses stand to benefit massively. If Kamala Harris wins, Elon has aligned himself with a different candidate, but some of her policies could still help his businesses, like you mentioned on EV credits and what happens there. And he clearly kind of put his dog in this race in a way that most public company CEOs specifically stay out of because they don't want to risk the reputation of their companies by aligning themselves with one political candidate, presidential candidate or another.
Yeah, I can't help but wonder how many Tesla owners and potential customers now see politics when they're shopping for a car, and that certainly could be problematic for Tesla down the road. Well, really appreciate it. Emily Glazer from the Wall Street Journal. Great to have you. Thanks so much. Coming up, from tariffs to tax breaks, what's happening on the presidential campaign trail that might impact you and your wallet? Stay with us. Welcome back to Big Business This Week. Less than 3 weeks to go before Election Day and the October surprise. The candidate sitting down with Trump-friendly Fox News is Kamala Harris. The vice president failing, however, to do what Trump has in separating herself from the Biden administration. On what and where will this race be decided? Washington Bureau Chief at Market Watch, Rob Schroeder, joining us now. Rob, good to see you, sir. So Kamala did say, quote, "My presidency will not be a continuation of Joe Biden's presidency." But did she distinguish how, if at all, it will be different?
Yeah, Dave, it's good to be with you. And you're right. The vice president was asked that question rather directly. She did say that she would bring her own experiences, her own life story to this presidency. But really, and in that interview, she was pressed rather hard on being the vice president in the Biden administration for the last 3+ years, 3.5+ years. So I don't know that she has completely distinguished herself from the president with whom she serves. And some viewers may not have come away from that interview being entirely convinced. That said, she would do a few things that are different. She would have different policies on, for example, the corporate tax rate, something our readers do care about. She's not quite as strict, shall we say, on that issue. So there are some issues there, but still, she certainly has been associated with the man she's trying to replace, shall we say.
Yeah, it's a political layup, and she's been asked a dozen times, and has she, and maybe I've missed it, clarified what she would do differently on the border?
The border, as we all know, is quite a sticky issue for her. And really, it's not something that she has, let's call it, direct control over. This is a process in which many people are involved, including at the White House. She does acknowledge that undocumented or illegal immigration is a deeply complex issue and that has a lot of important ramifications. So that is going to be something, one way or another, that the next president, whether it's her or former President Trump, is going to really have to dive into once again from day one. We see this as an issue that has defined many voters, rather motivated many voters to go to the polls now for years. So yes, it's going to be front and center right away.
Now, as for the Fox News commentator Bret Baier, he is largely a straight news guy. He was clearly, though, trying to appease the audience with both the combative style and the culture war substance. So in the end, did we learn anything, or was this just yet another political Rorschach test?
It seemed largely to me that what was going on with both of the Fox appearances by former President Trump and Vice President Harris is that they're trying to reach out to different constituencies that may not be in their corner, so to speak. It was really a strategy thing, and that's how I think we have to think about it. with Vice President Harris going on to maybe appeal to some more conservative folks and independents, and President Trump going on that same Fox town hall, well, rather a different Fox town hall, excuse me, that was attended by women. So they're each trying to find votes where they can. It's a smart strategy. If you're running for president, obviously, you want to try to make up that deficit somewhere. But listen, the polls are as tight as they've ever been, particularly in the swing states. Pennsylvania is where Bret Baier sat down with the vice president. So we'll see if we see any results from these interviews in the coming days. But really, if there are undecided voters out there, there must be a small amount of them, and they may or may not have been moved by what happened yesterday. But the race, again, is as tight as ever.
Yeah, she also campaigned with more than 100 Republicans trying to persuade those moderate Republicans. Do you think that's her closing message? What does Harris need to do in the final weeks before we turn to Trump?
I really think that on the economy and on reproductive rights, the Democrats, that's going to be their strong suit. She is appealing to voters on kind of pocketbook issues. She's laid out numerous plans on housing. They've both, as we have reported at MarketWatch, they've both laid out an entire suite of tax cuts. It was a popular story for us this week, laying out exactly what they would do on both these sides. So she does have that appeal. I think the challenge for her, however, is that she has been associated, obviously, with the Biden administration. So you could say, why, and by some measures, why are you not celebrating some of these wins if you're trying to convince us to vote for you? It's good that things look good, but she's saying that these are the areas in which we can do better. So there is a bit of a question about, well, why aren't we already doing better in some areas?
And Trump, for the most part, has been turning down interviews, canceling CNBC, canceling 60 Minutes, refusing another debate. He did do an interview with the Bloomberg editor-in-chief at the Economic Forum in Chicago. He said, quote, "It's simple math. Tariffs are going to have a massive positive impact." Does he have any support in the party, though, regarding tariffs? Is this a message that you think resonates with voters?
It's difficult, Dave, to find economists who are in favor of tariffs. Now, of course, Trump has his own tariff whisperers, so to speak, who worked for him in his last administration. People like Peter Navarro, they claim that that this is good for American industry. And the argument is that if you make foreign goods more expensive by putting tariffs on them, then domestic goods look more attractive. It's not quite that simple, but that is the argument. So, and I expect that he's going to continue to say this right up until, and certainly if he wins. I don't doubt whatsoever that he'll go right back at this again. But I do think you'll find plenty of economists who will say that the effects from these are detrimental because they're really attacks.
Yeah, I've worn out my keyboard. I've worn out ChatGPT and Google trying to find economists that support tariffs. I frankly cannot find one. It's really remarkable. What do they say would be the economic impact?
Well, the effect is that you do make foreign goods more expensive. If you're taxing something, let's say a TV that comes from Korea or China or what have you, and it, by dint of it simply coming from a foreign country, if you're adding a 20% or 15% or what have you tariff to it, the retailer is going to pass that down to the consumer. That seems to be pretty basic economics.
Now, it is a fair critique that Kamala Harris has wandered about rhetorically in interviews, filibustering with what some call word salads, but Trump did just that physically this week, and I'm still stunned by it. Jimmy Kimmel called it swaying like a manatee tangled in seaweed for 39 minutes at a Pennsylvania town hall. What happened here? And is the campaign, the Harris campaign, seizing on a bizarre episode?
He did, in fact, do a dance or a sway or whatever word you'd like to choose. I think the issue was there was someone or two people perhaps in the audience who had medical problems. Vice President Harris is asked about President Trump's fitness for office and so on. And they have, I believe, capitalized on some of these things. she has turned her attacks on him into sharper rhetoric lately. And really, they're in the final sprint, so this kind of thing is to be expected.
Our thanks to Rob Schroeder at MarketWatch. Great to have you, sir. Up next, the business stories you may have missed this week, including why Amazon is investing in nuclear energy. Welcome back. Amazon going nuclear. Time to talk with our friend Peter Green to catch up on the news stories you may have missed this week. You'll find them in Cheddar's newsletter, Big Business This Week. Good to see you, Peter. So Amazon getting into the nuclear power game. What can you tell us?
Well, it's actually the three big tech companies are all in it: Google, Amazon, and Microsoft. They've got these huge data centers. They are using vastly more electricity now that all these big AI chips that NVIDIA is producing are being used to basically replace you and me by telling people what they need to know. And that's going to use an enormous amount of power, and we just don't have it. Plus, you've got EVs coming on. You've got cities saying, it'd be a lot more efficient and safer and environmentally friendly to use electric stoves instead of gas. Huge demand for electricity. Where's it going to come from? That's why they're talking, Amazon and Google are talking about building micronuclear power plants. These designs have been around for a while, very similar to the ones that are inside aircraft carriers and submarines. And in fact, once were flown in a military airplane in the 50s to see if they could have a nuclear powered plane. But the idea of that crashing kind of put the kibosh on it. Microsoft's just gone full hog, and I don't know how many of you all remember 3 Mile Island and the Jane Fonda movie, The China Syndrome, about a nuclear reactor that broke down, started melting down, and might have blown a hole right through the center of the earth. Well, that'll happen in Pennsylvania, a place called 3 Mile Island in the middle of the Susquehanna River. Microsoft just entered a deal with the company that owns that, Constellation Energy, to take up the power from the remaining nuclear reactor at 3 Mile Island. How that's going to go, kind of interesting.
Yeah, that is three companies with $7 trillion in market cap: Amazon, Microsoft, and Google. So what they want, they will ultimately get. To your point, though, it's not just the transition to all the AI, it's the EV transition, which we are nowhere near being able to power. My question is, how does this transition to nuclear power conflict with these same companies' drive and Democrats' drive to clean energy goals and sources?
Well, the one good thing you can say about nuclear energy is that it is greenhouse gas free for the most part, apart from constructing these power plants. The downside is that you're left with nuclear waste, and that stuff just doesn't go away. It's very hard to keep under control. It's very hard to put it in leak-proof places. There was a mountain out in the Southwest where they wanted to bury all the nuclear waste, and then they found there was some issues with underground water that may be carrying the waste elsewhere. It's a big problem. I don't know how the world deals with it. I mean, we could put solar panels on everyone's roof and windmills as well, but that's going to take a long time. It looks like we're going to be stuck with a combination of nuclear and renewables as a way to save the planet and have enough energy to do what we need and want to do.
Our thanks to Peter Green. Check out his newsletter, Big Business This Week. You can sign up at cheddar.com. You can catch new episodes every Friday at 10 a.m. right here on Cheddar. Thanks for joining us.